see what kind of speed and attention that's being given to this subject. So, on the subject of the loan charge, which I just warned you that I was going to raise with you, some people appear to have received extremely poor quality advice, which may have led them into using schemes such as disguised remuneration, which were then caught up by the loan charge. How prevalent is this, first of all? And have you ever considered lowering the loan charge or tax payable by people who were caught out in these situations?
I might ask my colleague Beth Russell on the statistics, if I may. I mean, to give you an oversight, I mean, it is certainly the case that it's regrettable that people have been promoted and brought into these schemes. This has been subject to a Supreme Court ruling. It's been subject to an independent inquiry, and HMRC, and I think they've given evidence, if not here, elsewhere, are now trying to deal sensitively and flexibly with people in that situation. As to the actual statistics, my colleague Beth Russell might be better placed to answer.
Yeah, so just to add on that, I mean, there obviously has been a lot of focus on the loan charge, and I believe it's something like 50,000 people who are subject to the loan charge subsequent to the recommendations that Lord Morse made in his independent review. I mean, that obviously that is a really significant set of issues for those people affected. And I would say that I think as a proportion of the entire taxpayer population, it's sort of 99.8% of people are not using these schemes, but for the ones that have done, I know that HMRC are working really hard to try and address all of those issues as carefully as they can. It's a really difficult set of circumstances. People didn't pay the tax that they should have paid, but HMRC are trying to look at as much flexibility as they can to help people repay, alongside obviously looking at how we can do more on the promoters of these schemes, who obviously are really culpable for what they've done.
Well, we know that there's, thank you for that answer, that we know that there's very little being done against the promoters of these schemes, if anything at all, just now. Given the potential issues around poor quality tax advice that's raised in cases now subject to the loan charge, should tax advice be regulated in a similar way to legal or financial advice services?
I mean, let me pick up your first point. I mean, I don't think it's quite true to say that nothing is being done on promoters. I mean, HMRC have issued lots of stop notices since they came in to force to stop close down schemes. They have prosecuted some promoters, including one directly related to disguised remuneration. And we've given HMRC in the most recent couple of finance bills extra powers to deal with promoters. There's obviously a lot more to do, but they are doing something there. Just on the regulation point, it is something that HMRC have looked at and talked about. There's not a specific plan on that at this point. Where ministers are particularly looking is about the regulation of umbrella companies, and there was a recent consultation on that, and that's part of the landscape here.
So Beth, have you made an assessment of the impact of regulating tax advice? What would be the pros and cons then?
I think it's something that you would primarily have to talk to HMRC about, because they've done the work on this, but it's something we could perhaps write to you about. Apologies, I don't have lots of information that I can give you on that now. But I think it picks up some of the points James was making in the earlier answer about regulation, which was we'd have to make sure that it was done in a proportionate way and look at all the implications.
Okay, well, talking about that proportionality in treatment of people, are you confident that the HMRC is treating people fairly in loan charge cases, or where people have requested a settlement?
So I'm confident that Jim Harrer, as the Chief Executive and Permanent Secretary of HMRC, is totally focused on making sure that HMRC are doing what they can in these circumstances, which, as I said earlier, we totally recognise are really difficult for people. There is a lot of flexibility in the framework within which HMRC operates to give people time to pay, and they've made various commitments about what they will and won't do. I know there's a lot of work going on. One of the issues being raised has been about the letters that people have received. A lot of work going on to make sure that those are discussed in advance and cleared with people like the Low Income Tax Reform Group. Okay. But it's something that we are, particularly in light of the debate last week, talking to HMRC a lot about, and I know that the new Financial Secretary is also doing that.
Okay, thank you, Beth. One last question, please, Chair. Beth, you said earlier that much more has to be done. So do you have any plans to tackle bad actors setting up schemes?
So again, I think that would be primarily a question for HMRC. They are obviously looking all the time at how they can use the powers that they've got to tackle promoters and to shut down these schemes. They have something called stop notices, which means they can tell promoters to close down the schemes and obviously go after the promoters themselves.
But working on the premise that more must be done, there must have been some discussions between you and HMRC on this issue, surely.
So yes, which is why we've given them extra powers in the recent finance bill to do more on promoters. So we expect them to be using those powers as much as they can.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Drew. James, do you want to come in on that?
No, I was going to say, I mean, I don't want, Beth wasn't, I don't want to give the impression that we are satisfied with any form of tax avoidance, and it is absolutely the case that we want to correct that at source. And if you look back over the last decade plus at what the government has done in various guises, there is initiative after initiative after initiative to crack down on tax avoidance, and I actually think we've been really rather successful. But it is the case that there is a continuation of promoters, and we do want to do significantly more. So I just wanted to make sure you weren't left with any different impression from that.
Angela.
We've seen